Ready? Okay. Welcome. We on? Are we on? Okay, great. Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's December 12th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Father God, we just thank you for this opportunity to get before you and in front of our peers and our citizens, our community. I pray, Lord God, that you would give us the grace and strength to make good decisions, give us the wisdom to understand the issues before us, and to make what is right before your eyes and in our community's eyes. Bless this evening. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, at this time we'll have citizens be heard, and we would just have one, Cynthia Massey. Please come, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Honorable council members, is this on? Yes, okay. This is regarding items 12 and 14, the change in EDC bylaws. I am in favor of the changes presented by council members Sanders and Sones and would like to commend them for submitting these much needed revisions to the EDC bylaws. I am also very much in favor of the appointment of council members Sabrina McGowan and Jen Sones to the EDC board. Regarding agenda item number 9, changes to the animal ordinance. I apologize that I missed the first reading of the proposed changes. I have been in contact with and spoken to Justin in Public Works regarding the proposed revisions to the animal ordinance to learn the reasons for the changes, specifically about mandatory microchipping. Justin told me that the main reason for the proposed change was to unite stray animals with their owners. The licensing requirements did not work to that effect, and it is, in my opinion, that mandated microchipping will be just as ineffective. Many of the strays in Helotes are from people in San Antonio who drop them off here and leave. How would mandatory microchipping for Helotes residents help that problem? The state of Texas does not require microchipping. Nevertheless, some cities such as San Antonio and Converse have ordinances mandating this practice. Despite this, I do not believe adding this intrusive practice will alleviate the issue of stray animals. Additionally, I wonder how such a requirement for pet owners would be enforced. Although I am in favor of removing the licensing requirements for dogs and cats, I am not in favor of adding microchipping requirements for Helotes residents under the terms of the ordinance. I believe it should be an owner's prerogative and not that of the government to choose the method by which our pets are identified or not. Nevertheless, if the city believes microchipping of Helotes pets would be helpful for our animal control department, then a more effective way to introduce this concept would be to have the city's public relations department put out monthly notices about the efficacy of microchipping pets to our residents. Additionally, there may be a problem with the wording of section 1453A. The owner or keeper of any dog or cat shall have the animal implanted with a registered microchip before the animal is 4 months of age. Does this mean that dogs and cats after that age are exempt from microchipping? In any case, I do not see how this ordinance is enforceable, and I do see it as an undue burden on residents and a violation of our rights as pet owners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anybody sign up for online? No? Okay. Is this on? It just seems low. Okay. At this time, looking for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items number 3 through 5 is written, unless there's an item that somebody wants to take off.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve consent agenda items 3 through 5 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by Cato. All in favor of approving consent agenda items number 3 through 5 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This time looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 6 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item 6 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by Sones. Just a beginning word. We have Michael here. No. Yes, Michael. If you want to come up, Michael, just to provide some clarity. This is an application. This is a petition for an application for annexation, but the annexation more than likely will be accompanied with a development agreement that will be come to us in the future. So we're not really voting on the annexation at this point. We are voting on accepting the petition.
Correct.
And then it will be submitted with the actual annexation vote will come with the full business development agreement.
That's correct.
So if you have any additional clarity or any questions, want to direct them to Michael, but we'll open up with you, Councilman Sanders.
You know, I looked through the package. I don't have any real issues with it I at this point, right? I will say, though, this kind of jives with the city master plan about, you know, that area was always originally intended to kind of be developed for businesses of this nature. So we'll see where this leads. But yeah, as far as the petition for annexation, I don't have an issue with it.
Councilmember.
I just have a question. As I was reviewing the packet in preparation for the meeting, under page 404, it talks about the pros and cons in the section with review and analysis. And one of the pros that it listed, I'm assuming this was generated by city staff. The second point says it establishes the commercial zoning designation, which would offer additional services to the Beverly Hills and Brycewood subdivisions. I think I understand what you're saying there, but
Okay.
could you explain that a little bit more, what the intent of that point was?
So as part of the city, that commercial project would be annexed and it would just make whatever they have to offer as far as their commercial projects, for example, a car lube place, a restaurant, whatever store, whatever it is that they plan. I think it's accessible to them, not only to the people in Shanefield, but it also benefits residents of the.
So
the city.
they obviously want to be in Helotes for their project. If they wouldn't get this granted, are they still going to do the development, or? is that a no?
They would be allowed. So like, say, for example, if they're not annexed, then they would just go through the county.
Okay.
Yeah. So the trade-off is that, you know, they'll also get some of the city services.
So to follow up what she's saying, so it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
So it's either under Helotes oversight or it's going to be Bear County.
Right. Right. So that's the whole purpose of like the development agreement, because there's certain things that are going to be something that they want to implement as part of, you know, their overall goal of the project. But again, the trade-off is that they get the city services and they want to be part of the city of Helotes.
So again, we will have plenty of time to be able to decipher, you know, the businesses they want to put in there, the specifics of the development agreement, what variances, if any, are being required, restrictions on what type of businesses will go in there. All of this will be discussed in the presentation. We are simply just accepting the petition or not accepting the petition at this point. It doesn't solidify any aspects of the deal. It just simply allows it to go forward so that they can actually submit. So we still have the opportunity to say, no, we don't want that type of business, or no, we don't like that type of development, and therefore we won't annex. Of course, at that point, to your point, they can still build it because there are no restrictions under Bear County. So it's just simply that they see Helotes as being a good place to be a part of. And so they're looking for, so they're submitting a petition at this point to proceed with a joint annexation business development agreement. Councilman? do you have any-
No issues. I think it's a win-win.
No, I think this is a good idea for us to control this kind of development. Or at least have a hand in it.
Correct.
No questions at this time.
Okay. All right, well, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 6 is written, say aye.
I,
All opposed? Motion carries. Next, looking for a motion, a second to discuss and take action on item number 7 as written.
So moved.
Motion by Merchant, second by
I'll second that.
Sanders. Okay, and this is actually for Sherwin-Williams on Hausman Road near intersection of Bandera Road. We have a site plan and a general building concept and exterior lighting and signage issues here, so I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, I thought this was a very thorough submission. There are so many details in here that it's very thorough, very well done. I appreciate this very much. And I tend to agree with the Planning and Zoning Commission that this conceptual design is very well done.
Okay. Councilman Sanders?
Yeah, I second Council Member Merchant said, very thorough. I wish all the plans would come with all this information. It's a great fit for that area. I mean, it's kind of a dead zone right there between the post office and Caliber. So, and I know we're not going to talk about trees, but I'm glad they're going to keep some trees.
Yeah. Councilman? Sir?
I think it's a great opportunity for the city, citizens of Helotes to have something like this.
Good. Councilman?
No questions.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 7 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to number 8, looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item 8. I guess as all as one entity as written.
Correct. Okay, we have a motion by Sanders, second by
Okay, I'll second.
Merchant. And again, we have a business that's out in the UTJ that has been there for a while. And of course, signage and tree ordinance is the only things that we really have governing. And so we're really taking a look at sign A and sign B as submitted. That's a picture of what's actually out on their property, in their property, not a picture of the sign. For those that don't know, these are breachable doors. These are doors that are manufactured for firefighters and police officers and SWAT teams and FBI, DEA to train on to be able to breach metal doors and wooden doors in the execution of their duties. So that's the type of business, in case anybody wondered. They actually do quite a bit and they ship nationwide. I think they have somewhat international presence too, to Canada and Mexico as well too.
Countries or something.
Yeah, globally. So, but we're looking at their signs. So any, let's go ahead and start off, Councilman Member Sanders.
I got a question for staff, Michael in particular. What does the designation marker mean? That seems to be a new term that we're using, and I can't find it in the ordinances. So I was just trying to figure out, what does marker mean?
So basically, we don't have a category for a fence sign or a sign above the door, on a fixture. So we've kind of tended to back into the word marker. If you remember when we did the view at Scenic Loop, the event center, they had markers or company logos on the fence. So that's just a term that we use because there's no actual designation for that type of signage in our code.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that helps, but
It's not a temporary banner. It's not a flag.
right,
it's,
there's not anything
marker.
that you can actually back it into. So we just use the term marker as if basically the signage that they've designed to express their logo on, whether it be the cistern like it was in the view at Scenic Loop or on a fence.
But the square footages of it actually fall within the allowable size, right?
Right.
So whether you consider it a sign, it's still the same square footage of a sign, whether you call it a marker or a banner or a
But
sign.
because it's not a wall sign, you would kind of go through a variance process,
Okay.
which is why it's before you.
So my only comment is, I have no problem moving forward on this. But I think it's imperative that we include that kind of terminology in our ordinances in the future.
In the form as a
Oh, well, I think we
definition.
need to, if that is now a precedence thing that we're going to say, call it, it needs to be.
Housekeeping added into the definitions.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
But I'm ready to move forward.
okay. Council.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with this. It's not a road sign, it's a fence sign. It's not heinous. It's actually kind of well done. No issue for me.
No issues moving forward, but I do agree with Councilmember Sanders to get the language in the ordinance.
No issues.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 8 is written, say aye.
Hey,
All opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion and a second on item number, have a second and final reading and action on item number 9 is written.
So moved.
Motion by Merchant,
I'll second that.
motion by Merchant, second by Sanders.
Okay, so I hadn't been, I'll be honest, I hadn't thought about it like Miss Massey had until she mentioned it about government intruding, like requiring this kind of thing. But on the other hand, our government has been requiring licensing for years. To what end? You know what I mean? Not that it's just to say that it's one of those things that governments do, I suppose. I think this is more like a good idea. And I don't know how you word it to that way, I guess, with the microchipping, which is on, where are we? 16 of 27, section 14-53, microchipping required. Yeah, I don't know where to go with this.
So let me provide a couple of options, what we can do with this and maybe aid some of the conversation. I've long been a proponent that, if there's something that needs a permit or a process, we should have it. But not necessarily should have a bunch of permits and processes if we don't really need it. It seems, I guess the colloquial way to say it is, we don't need to nickel and dime everybody to death for paving a bunch of paper just to have a license. You're going to need a license for your doorbell. You need to have a permit for this. Excessive licensing and permits, something I'd like to filter through. This is one that I agree with, that we don't necessarily need a license, and especially when you start talking about an annual license for your cat. You got to, every year you got to renew your license for your cats, 12 times over till it passes away. It's you can get a lifetime. I don't even know why we have an annual, because it just doesn't make sense. Seems like you just come and get it once. But again, the licenses doesn't help strays are dropped off by ill-meaning people, so they're not going to be abiding by license and microchipping. They're dropping them off for a reason. But what we can do is, I believe there's room to be able to move one direction or the other on this, because we're discussing taking action of this. I believe we could approve parts, of course, make an amendment, a motion to approve the removal of license requirements without instituting the mandatory microchipping. But I personally, I feel it is a great idea to microchip your pets. I think we should proactively include that in our social media. I agree with Ms. Massey's statements. I think it's a great idea and promote it, but to make it mandatory and enforcement's, if you find a stray animal with no markings and no microchip, how are you going to enforce the ticket that somebody didn't microchip it? Somebody that loses their pet, they're going to check with the city first, and if it's there, I mean, you can say, hey, you didn't have tags on it. People are going to be interested in getting their pets back if they want them. If they don't, they're not going to be claiming them. So with that, we'll pass it off to Councilmember Sanders for your input.
So when this came through the first reading, everywhere I've always lived, we always had that requirement, right? And I've lived in many, many places over the years. So I didn't really, I'll be honest with you, I really didn't deeply think about it, all right? Another person actually had brought this up to my attention, as well as Miss Massey's comments this morning. And I reflect, I look back to one of the things that I promised people in the city, and I think everybody on council made those same promises, is not enforce silly rules, laws, ordinances when they're not, when maybe it's overreach, or it's something that we highly encourage in the community, but it's not really enforceable. So I've really kind of changed my mind on this topic. I actually would be in favor of pulling that terminology out of this ordinance, but yet approve everything else, but with the exception of Ms. Massey did say something, and something she shared with council earlier about, well, if we're not mandating chipping, then it doesn't matter if it's in there incorrectly about before 4 months versus after 4 months. Right. I think there was, so anyways, that's where I stand on it.
I guess my question for city staff would be, would requiring microchipping help you facilitate missing pets? Because as someone who's called animal control multiple times, even before I was on council, and after, because my young adults like picking up stray dogs because they have big hearts, right?
Yes.
And then I'm working issues. I've relied on the city multiple times, and I'm only one person, so it's a lot. So if you
Yes.
could just give me some feedback, that would be helpful.
So like I said, our biggest goal of this ordinance is returning pets to their homeowners, right? Already out the gate, as soon as we take in an animal, whether it looks like it's a stray, it looks like it's owned, state law does require us to check for microchips. That's the first thing we have to do. So that's one of the reasons why we want to implement this, is we already have to check for it. The more people we can get with animals microchipped, the better odds the animal gets returned home, whether it's in our jurisdiction or whether it's in someone else's jurisdiction. Because even the county, the first thing they have to do is microchip an animal, right? Or they have to test for a microchip, right? So that's the biggest goal, and we believe it's the best way. If we want to change from mandatory to not, it's by all means, it's whatever the people want, but our main goal is returning animals back to their owners.
Do you have people who you get the same pets who are escape artist pets that you see going through, that you could use this as a incentive, saying, okay, we've caught your pet 3 times and this is an ordinance, and get some traction, or don't you find that?
In that scenario, yes. But also the same note, we generally know where those animals are coming from, right?
That's true, because you've caught them multiple times.
So if we've caught them multiple times, we generally know what house they're coming from, or at least the general area, right?
Right.
And then we can go in our own records and review, has that animal been in our custody before, right? Before, our double checking was we checked through the permits, right? Obviously, we're removing that. Our way to double check now would be through microchipping, right? But that would be basically it's our backup, right? So
But
if we don't,
microchipping is more efficient than going through
it is
records.
far more efficient.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I have no problem with the ordinance, how it's written. I think microchipping is a great idea.
Let's move her.
Yeah, I've kind of changed my mind on this as well. I do agree that microchipping is the best way to reunite pet owners and their pets, but I don't see how it can be enforced. I think it's probably better addressed as a public service announcement. And the city can leverage its social media and other communications to remind pet owners of why they should be doing this. And but I don't think making it mandatory is the route to go. I mean, when I first moved back here, I filled out the license for, our dog, but if I hadn't done it, I don't know what difference it would have made. So I just feel like the people that wouldn't apply for a pet license are not going to follow through on getting their dogs microchipped if it's required.
All right, so listening to the comments here, I feel like we have universally an acceptance of the reality that microchipping is best practice. And we definitely want to encourage that. Whether or not we want to institute that in ordinance is clearly a little bit divided. So there's a couple of different ways. Go, sir.
Just, I apologize for the interruption. I don't know if it's been stated or if it's been a topic of conversation, but when we have animals that are not registered and not chipped, what is that process and or expense that's associated as opposed to reuniting?
So if we taken an animal and there's no documentation, so we have no previous registration or there's no microchip. We take in that animal, obviously we scan for microchip, it's not there. Our first then reaction is we will take pictures of this animal, we'll post it on our social media to reach out to the greater community, see if we can find its owner, right? Or else from there, if the animal has any signs of ownership at all, we have to keep the animal for 5 days before it becomes our property. If it has no signs of ownership, it's 3 days, then it becomes our property. From there, we basically start our process to get the animal adopted out to someone.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So without the microchipping, and so you've been involved in public works and been around this for a long time, Justin. So under current mandatory licensing, how often does this happen, and how many times are those animals not licensed?
I will say most of the animals we get are not licensed.
So I don't know if that would change any. If we're telling, I microchip all my pets because I care about my pets, and if they get loose, I want to take care of them. Just like I would license my pets, like the current rule is. So I think the people that want to take care of their pets will, and I think the folks that don't want to take care of their pets won't. And so I guess I don't know if making a law or an ordinance is going to force those people to do it. Maybe onesies and twosies, but I don't. That's my concern. Is we're making a law that's not enforceable, and no one's going to really follow it except for people that care about their pets. So then you wonder, so how far does the government reach in the people's houses? That's my concern.
So where we are right now is we have a motion and a second to discuss and take action on this item as written. And so it would require a vote unless there is any amendment that's offered on this.
So, yeah, I can offer an amendment for this if that's agreeable to the council here, in that we move forward with this, with what is in this motion, except for this mandatory microchipping thing.
So if I understand you correctly, you are moving to amend your motion
Right.
to approve item number 9 as written with the exception of excluding mandatory.
Section 1453.
Okay.
And just, I was looking at the ordinance and there are other places where microchipping is referenced.
Right, and then no person may use a register. Well, anywhere where microchipping is referenced, we should remove that. And then we can look at this again next year.
Okay, so just to streamline this, if you can restate, you want to amend your motion to approve number 9 is written with the exclusion of mandatory microchipping.
Throughout the, yes.
If you want to state that, then we'll have it for the record.
Okay. I would like to amend the motion to approve item number 9 as written, except to exclude any verbiage having to do with microchipping.
And the intent of that is to remove the requirement.
To remove the requirement.
Yes, to remove the requirement to microchip animals.
We have a amended motion. Councilmember Sanders, you seconded. Do you also second that?
Yes, I second that motion.
Okay, then
That amended
I believe we need to vote to accept that motion. Accept the amendment.
Yeah, you would need to vote on that to be able for it to go through. So you'll be voting on the ordinance, but you're also voting to remove
The amendment.
Right.
the amendment.
Okay, so at this point, we'll take a vote. A vote of yay will be to approve item number 9 with the removal of the restriction requiring microchipping. So all in favor of approving item number 9 with the removal of the requirement of microchipping, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries amended motion carries 3-2. Huh? 2.
Jen and Dave?
Jen and Dave.
3-2.
3-2. This time we're looking for a motion and a second to have the second and final reading and action on item number 10 is written. So having to do with our fee schedule for,
I move, we discuss, take action on agenda item number 10 is written.
motion by Sanders, second by
I'll second this.
Merchant. Are you handling this one as well too? Is this falling under
Yes.
Michael? Okay,
This is me.
please,
Um,
go ahead.
Real quick, so council knows, since we are removing the requirements for microchipping, we did earlier, when we did our budget, we added a penalty for not having microchips. So under the animal control item, it'll be penalty D, and it'll be number 3, not having microchips. We would have to remove that from the fee schedule as well.
Understood.
Other than that, this is just changing the commercial animal establishment from under the food establishment permit and making its own permit, reducing the fees from based off the number of staff members there to a set $75 fee.
We like a reduction in fees.
So what's the part I need to amend?
You don't need to amend anything. It's just that because of what happened in item number 9, that makes line item B3, the fee for microchipping, non-applicable because it won't be in there because of the action that was just taken.
I would still recommend the motion
To
be
remove it.
to remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to amend your motion to approve item number 10 is written with the exclusion of microchip fees or
So,
lack of microchip fees.
Yes.
so I approve agenda item number 10 as written to include an amendment to remove item
D3.
D3 in the maintenance fee schedule.
Okay. Merchant, you
I agree.
Second?
Second.
Okay. I'll start this end. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Sure. Okay, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 10 amended as such to remove the fee for lack of microchipping in D3, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. This time we're looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action of item number 11 as written. This will have to do with our subscription-based healthcare services with Alamo City Urgent Care. Anyone?
Sure, I'll make a
Okay.
motion that we move forward with this.
Motion by Merchant, second by
Second.
Sones. Okay. Again, for those who don't know, we have the challenge of dealing with healthcare and navigating healthcare as a municipality in today's tumultuous insurance world. And one such way of thinking outside of the box is we developed a subscription healthcare services, put out a proposal 3 years ago now. And who picked it up was Alamo City Urgent Care and Prestige Emergency Rooms. These two, this firm with 4 or 5 locations of each facility across San Antonio area, including in the Helotes area, provides us a very low cost monthly fee for our employees to be able to have fixed rate access to urgent care and fixed rate access to ER services. This also helps our insurances because then those claims don't go to our insurance and reduces our claims, which further enhances our ability to get better insurance at a less price, which is something we were finally able to achieve this past year. So is it outside of the box way of thinking that has served us very well? We have had a tremendous response from our employees as far as satisfaction of the treatment at both of these facilities. They are top rate and also turned out to be the only ones to respond. So we're fortunate to have best in class be the only ones to respond. So the fees and to us are, you have your information there. It's very similar to what we have, which is basically their 3-year contract. Their 1-year contract and both year extensions are now expired. And so we're just looking to get a new contract. So we'll start with, sir, do you have any issues or
No, I
questions?
think this is a really good idea, and this is very helpful to the city in our challenge with acquiring health insurance for our employees. So this is probably a good move.
Okay. Councilmember Solons?
I just appreciate staff member Diana Lopez putting this packet together. It was succinct but complete. Healthcare is complex, so I just appreciate, I don't have any questions because the packet was so well done. So thank you.
Greg?
No, the feedback that I've heard over the last couple of years, using this to kind of augment the normal healthcare coverage the city provides, that it gets used a lot and that it is beneficial just to the people that work for the city of Helotes. So the cool thing with this is I think it provides even more locations for them to actually attend. Previously, I think it was just Prestige, which is only 4 locations, and now combining it with Alamo.
They
merged.
Well, no, they're not merged. It's the same company, just different division. One's urgent care and one is their ER services. They've had locations and have always had those locations.
Oh, they did. Okay.
It's under the same corporate umbrella, but their ER services are standalone ERs and the urgent care centers are. So you go to one if you're sick, you go to one if you broke your arm, right?
But it's okay. So depending on what you're going in for, there's 8 locations depending on what your ailment is. So
Correct.
I guess really my point was, thanks for the correction, is that there's flexibility in locations and where you potentially live. If you don't live right next to one, there's probably another one nearby.
All right. Okay. Is that everybody? Did you have a comment?
Sounds great.
I think we're waiting for council member.
Well, we can, but he's also absent. We can still vote as it is time to vote. And we'll just have one absent here. All in favor of approving item number 11 as written, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4, 1 absent. Motion carries.
He's coming back if you want to do the vote again.
Which request is
Or just to request.
Or you can just take his vote.
Just take a single vote.
for against?
Blind Mellow here, sir. Your vote on approving item number 11 is written.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes unanimously.
Sorry.
Once again. All right, at this time, I'm looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 12 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item number 12 is written.
Motion by Sanders, second by Sones. Okay. For those that keep track and see, most of our agenda items say staff or mayor. Just as a little point of interest, typically staff put stuff together, but in our current general law, strong mayor, the mayor has the opportunity to be able to decide, delay or approve items on the agenda. However, when 2 council members bring something, there is no choice. I must put it on there. Now, practice is I put everything on there anyways, because it's my job to make sure everything gets heard. But that is why you see a little difference in the annotation and what that is. So with that, we will turn it over to Council Member Sanders for your discussion on item number 12.
So just a little bit of history. So back in 2022, council had brought an item up for discussion concerning the EDC bylaws, and the outcome of that discussion and action was to remove a lot of the city of Helotes, the mayor, city council out of the regular oversight of the EDC in their bylaws. And so over the last 2 years, and I voted for that, I approved it. And so over the last 2 years, I've seen changing some of those roles and responsibilities had, I think, really made it difficult on the EDC board of directors and the president to stay focused on what they're charged to do. And that's, to to work on our robusting our economy, increasing our sales tax. They do a great job, and they are doing a great job. So this is not a slant on them. I think by us approving that 2 years ago, we made it much harder for the EDC to stay focused on their primary job. We added a whole lot of other things about, nominating, providing almost, oversight, hiring and firing and all that stuff. And so in my opinion, I think things worked a lot better for the EDC as well as the city council to provide that oversight, better oversight when things were done in the previous amendment. So anyway, so bottom line is recommending that we roll back some of those responsibilities back to the mayor, back to city council, and then also adding a provision that would restrict board of directors and the executive director from being a member of Chamber of Commerce boards in any fashion while they're serving in those positions, to avoid any conflict of interest, right? I'm not saying there was, but to avoid that, the optic. So that's the reason why, Councilmember Sones and me put this together. We think this is best for the city, putting more responsibility back on the elected city officials, because we're talking about tax dollars that are being spent out of the EDC as well. And I just want to lastly say, this is not, I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying anything bad about the president or the EDC board members. They're doing a fantastic job. They're leaning forward and they're doing what we're asking them to do about marketing and moving forward on our priorities. But I think this is going to be best for the city and best for the EDC, and that's why we push this forward.
Before I turn it over to Councilmember Sones for follow-up, what I'm going to do is actually identify specifically all the changes that we're talking about. The item was written and phrased on the agendas to be able to allow discussion, to be able to cover anything in the document. And speaking with council, there is we're limiting to things I'm about to read off, which is basically everything. But if you want to follow through in Article 2, we're looking at Article 2.1B. The board shall consist of 7 directors designated place 1 through place 7, each of whom shall be appointed by council. As vacancies occur on the board, this will be the change. Removal of section C and included here in section B. As vacancies occur on the board or terms expire, the mayor shall recommend appointments of new candidates and submit proposed nominations to council for approval. Any vacancy or replacement filled by council shall be for the remainder of the term. For the purpose of the corporation's bylaws, the following definitions apply. And then continues on, some housekeeping items of renumbering paragraphs D, E, F, G, and H as C, D, E, F, and G. In item remarked D, it says the mayor may provide up to 2 nominees for each vacancy. The next change is actually over in section 3.61. It will be renumbered 3.7. It's under executive director. And the changes are in the 3rd line, starting with the first full sentence in the 3rd line. The executive director of the corporation shall be nominated by the mayor and appointed or terminated by the council and shall not be a member of the board of directors. So the executive director will not be a member of the board of directors, be employee of the corporation. The next change is, again, housekeeping, renumbering section 3.7 is 3.8 and 3.8 is 3.9. Under conflict of interest, 3.9A shall now read, all corporation members, to include the executive director and directors, shall not be members of any Chamber of Commerce boards in any capacity. And in section B, in the event that a corporation member is aware that he or she has a conflict of interest, potential conflict of interest defined by law, and or chapter 2 of the administration of the chapter 2 administration, article 4 ethics, the court of city of ordinances, with regard to any particular matter of vote before the board, the corporation member shall bring the same to the attention of the board and shall abstain from discussion or voting thereof. Again, there are 4 other places of replacing director with corporation member for clarification. And I believe that is all of the items after review with council that we're looking at. Councilmember Sones, if you want to, anything at this time?
Oh, I just briefly, I agreed to sign on to this agenda item with Councilmember Sanders to reset to the original EDC bylaws. And initially I was hesitant for supporting the changes, but over a period of time and stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, I realized that this was important because on council, it's our goal to make decisions that are obviously best for the city of Helotes, but what are decisions and policies that are best for long-term for the city of Helotes. And as Council Member Sanders says, the EDC, and this is for our residents who everything the mayor just read sound very confusing, to just make it really succinct. EDC exists to drive business, which drives sales tax, which supports a city budget, which lies solely in the responsibility of our mayor, whether it's Mayor Whitehead or anyone who would come after him. And this includes essential city services that every citizen relies on. So for that reason, I just appreciate Councilmember Sanders for doing the majority of the legwork. So thank you. And I urge all my council members to support this change.
Councilmember?
Yes, I would have to say I'm kind of confused. If the EDC is doing such a bang up job, then why do we need these changes?
So there are.
That's a rhetorical question.
Well, there's actually a specific answer. If you want, one of the bylaws requires that a vacancy be filled within 30 days or be brought to 30 days. We've had one vacancy for around 6 or 7 months at this point, another one this month and a half. There has been an attempt to get one filled, but that person withdrew. So what this does is give a greater ability to be able to appoint members to the EDC. It is what has been historically the case. Additionally, as we take a look at the appointment and nomination of the executive director, the last, as I understand, as you guys have presented it, the last change to the EDC bylaws granted the authority to the board of directors to select the executive director. There has been great work that has been done, but there's also been challenges in making sure that the priorities of the board remain in the priorities of in line with the priorities of the city, and making sure that the executive director was selected and appointed by council puts that responsibility of selecting somebody that's going to be executive director who's there as an employee with the people responsible of determining what the directives of the city are. And then that frees up and allows the board to be able to manage operations in that described pathway of the direction of the city. So we have had some challenges. The board members have done a good job. There's been good things that have done with the EDC without a question. This is not about casting disparaging remarks at all. It's about more casting a vision for the future and helping eliminate some of the road bumps that may have happened in the last revision of the bylaws. Councilman?
Yes, I have a lot of questions here. Okay, so with everything you just said, Mr. Mayor, what exactly has the EDC not done that has been in the direction of this council?
So this is, again, not a judgment against necessary failures of, and actually I should really direct this to the directors of the motion. Actually, it's
Right.
not my
I
motion.
actually could add something that may just may or may not.
That's a question.
I don't mean
I have,
to.
and that's a question I'd like answered. What exactly has the EDC not done under the direction of this council?
So as well intentioned as the 2022 changes were to the bylaws, I think unintentionally what happened is that EDC board did not get the support that it needed from the city, just the way it was designed. And I'm really hopeful that these changes are going to give that board the support from the city. Now, there were a lot of variables that contributed to that. But I just think there's a big difference between an elected mayor and council versus people who are appointed and the level of support and direction they're getting.
So elected people versus volunteers don't support the city or don't do the city's
I don't think
best
that's,
interest.
that's
Not what I'm
not what it's saying. I think the issue, if I may, from the summary of conversations, the city owns the corporation.
Agreed.
The city sets forth the direction of where that corporation should operate. If the directors hired by a board and the board are self-appointed and self-nominated, then if the board decides to, who are not elected officials, decide to go in a direction that's different than the city, there's little, if anything, that the city
There's
can
no
do.
way to change it.
Okay,
So
so
change that. In fact, that was one of the things that was identified early on when this was made. This was a warning that the only option then becomes, if there becomes a stray, is to be able to say, okay, we got to terminate everybody.
So I'll ask the question again. Exactly. Give me an example. What has the EDC not done that the council has directed them?
Again,
So, well, I can clearly say I publicly here asked why we weren't getting our regular updates. Or that's clearly in the bylaws.
Right,
and
that guy was fired.
Fell on deaf.
hold on. Nope, stop.
It fell on deaf ears. And by the way,
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna let
He's
you
no longer
speak.
here.
I'm gonna let you speak, Councilman Merchant. I would hope you would let us speak as well.
Okay,
I'm not trying to make this a personal thing.
that's not.
I
so
mean,
this is
all I'm
government.
saying is all the trials and tribulations we had under the current construct, we did not encounter under the previous construct. The EDC was more focused on trying to do their primary job instead of having committees to try to nominate people, and then they weren't able to nominate people in a timely manner. We weren't getting the timely responses that we were directing, down to EDC on multiple issues.
Right,
And then the quality of some of the stuff we got back was questionable as well. So those were my concerns.
okay, so, and I'll follow up with this.
And if I may, before you continue.
Go
sir,
ahead.
If I understand the questions, we're talking about the EDC board.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, those board members are volunteers. They are a part of city government because they are responsible for in the neighborhood of $3 million in tax dollars. And they're keep a very tight book. I do believe that in Helotes and in government especially, there needs to be a separation. There needs to be autonomy to handle their directive, which is to generate tax dollars for. So there needs to be a separation with guidance, with direction from this council. If we do this, if we move back, we remove that autonomy for them, which will bring me to this point. To what end?
So Councilman Merchant, you keep talking about this autonomy. So what did the autonomy, what extra production did that provide for the city?
So, okay,
We
have
matter
a-
of fact, that with less oversight and less direction coming from council, where we had to have a lot of leadership meetings in between, right? Meeting quorum requirements, all that stuff that happened in between, all that energy. I don't understand how the autonomy that you keep talking about created better outcomes for the city.
because there's more input from more people. Right,
So-
and so what things have been done by the EDC? We've approved a lot of grants that they created and generated. We have an incredible mural in the roundabout now in Old Town. We have a brand new center, welcome center, and
I think there's a confusion here.
they have done an amazing job. Did anybody like ask them if this was gonna happen? Did anybody discuss this with them?
I discussed with two of them because I don't want to create a quorum
Right,
issue.
but this isn't your issue. This is their
I
issue.
know when I saw it came up there, so I talked with two of them.
Some of this stuff was talked in sessions we can't talk about here as
Well,
well.
So let me clarify one confusion that I see from your question and hopefully maybe provide some clarity. We're not talking about dismissing anybody off of the board.
I
We're
wasn't
not,
either.
we're not talking about changing what they're doing or what they've done. We're not talking that they've done anything. What we're doing is talking about who's going to nominate, and
Right,
we
so-
already confirm the nomination of
Yes.
the director. We also confirm the nomination of the board members. This is only changing who makes those nominations.
Right, I have
Now-
questions about that too.
Okay, and so that's the issue. It's not about who's on the board currently or if they have done or not done good things. The only thing they haven't done specifically, which this addresses, is they have not been able to fill the seats of their own board. They have 30 days to provide. They've had almost 7 months on one of them and almost 2 months on another one. So what this does is allows people who are actually elected to be able to staff that, which obviously have future agenda items on here, but generically speaking, what I look at is all this is doing is about saying, okay, in the previous iteration of where this is going is that the mayor would nominate and be the same approval by council. How that happens, in my opinion, needs to be just not my interview, but I would like to invite the board of directors to be a part or representatives from the board of directors. So we don't have a quorum issue to be able to be a part of that interview
I
process.
would
as
certainly
well as
expect
invite
that. And Mayor, I would certainly expect that.
So there would be more input, but what we have is a city employee of the corporation that is in charge and directed currently, that is to be selected by a group of volunteers that, again, we're down to 5. There's a challenge to be able to get board spots filled up. We have to get a director in there. And it's not that we're going to make a bad decision just to have somebody in there. We want to make a good decision, but we want to make sure that the director, again, one of the most significant employees of the city, responsible for, as you have pointed out, millions of dollars of sales tax coming in there, is somebody that is selected, has the confidence of council and the mayor, as opposed to potentially bringing somebody as in their nomination, it doesn't pass muster here, it gets passed and denied. That process could take months.
How many, Ms. Perez, how many in the last 12 or 6 months applications have you received to be on any board? Not the EDC specifically.
9 or 10.
Right, so we haven't heard 9 or 10, but we haven't heard about any of them. This is the first I've heard about 9 applications. Why can't we approve one of the 9 people who applied?
Because you don't have the power to, because the EDC board has not
Moved
submitted
on
to
it.
you.
Okay,
And the one that they did move on.
They recanted.
Withdrew.
withdrew
So again, you have,
from a lot of pressure applied by people sitting up here.
nobody talked to that person to remove. Nobody once talked to that person.
Well, no, they didn't talk to the person. They talked to the board to change their mind to remove the person from the application process.
I did not talk to the.
I will direct the
board.
council
Saying
back,
who you're
back to the agenda.
You have to stay on the agenda item, sir. So the issue is, do you have any other comments?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so why are you the only person to appoint board members? Can anybody apply? Can I suggest somebody? Is there
Absolutely.
something like that?
Absolutely.
So, but the language doesn't say that here.
It does not say that. It is simply just the nomination, just such as when we have applications for city administrator, it goes through you, it gets brought up and approved.
So Matt, I just reverted back to the old verbiage on the older amendment, right, to the bylaws.
Right, I
Which it
appreciate
clearly
that.
said, and And so those kind of discussions were always part of the selection process or the nomination process. So
Okay,
it wasn't crafted a certain way just because it just reverted back to the old verbiage.
so with an executive director who is, let's move to 3.7 here. So with an executive director who is a paid person, correct?
Yes.
This person is paid?
Yeah.
Why is this person to be nominated by the mayor and not actually set like put out as a job application?
It is put out as a
It
job
is.
application.
Well, it says, this isn't what this says, shall be nominated.
Sir, I don't think
by
you
appointed
understand the definitions of the
And
words. that you're reading.
shouldn't this say something about contract and negotiation by you and not necessarily like
That comes in the form.
nominate?
I appreciate your concerns, but I think you failed to grasp how
Have I?
this works. Yes.
Because this all seems,
So again,
You're asking the
planned.
same questions. which
these
is
12, 13, 14, these all seem very planned.
So
they reverted back to the old verbiage where everything you're talking about, contracts were put in place. All those steps were taken. They weren't spelled out step by step by step in granular detail, like the questions you're raising.
Well,
So
it doesn't say that I'm going to be appointing them. It doesn't even say that I negotiate. As a matter of fact,
I know it doesn't.
the same the process, if you understand.
It says the executive director of the corporation shall be nominated by the mayor and appointed or terminated by the council. And shall not be a member of the board of directors. It's pretty clear language.
Would you like the answer to the question? If so, I'm gonna have point of order and ask you to not speak while I'm trying to answer your question. The answer to that is this: I'm not appointing. They're not asking for me to appoint. They're asking me to nominate. Part of the nomination process is an application process with interviews, reviews, introduction of the board of members of the EDC and council members to review. Then after discussion, I bring a nomination. That nomination then either gets accepted or rejected. Then you would offer the most likely city administrator to negotiate a contract. At that point, that would be an item that would come up on the agenda at a future for discussion in executive session to discuss the terms, much like we're doing today for city administrator.
Okay.
Then it comes out for a vote. So there are a lot of steps that go in
Gotcha.
that process before. What you're glossing over is all the process that goes in there. It is just
I got
simply who makes the nomination. Right now, all of that same stuff happens. It's just the nomination comes from the board of
Okay.
directors.
I appreciate that.
So that verbiage was worded that way. So instead of saying the mayor, it said.
I appreciate
This
that.
is the board of
explanation.
directors, but all that detail that you're asking for and that you're throwing at us right now isn't identified or clarified in
Okay.
the amendment that you wrote the last go around. So, but you're asking for a different
Yeah.
standard in this version.
I'm just asking for clarification, that's all. So, and then the next question, 3.9A. So how is a conflict of interest only with the chamber and not with item 14?
So I can answer that specifically in this discussion. When you have currently we have a visitor center that had chamber as a tenant. And in the specific situation we had the president of the chamber also being a member of the board of directors for the EDC. So you have inherent conflict of interest of a person approving his own contract. You have shared activities and office space and joint ventures and requests for EDC and expenditures on chamber items and vice versa. And so there is the potential of having conflict of interest there. This was something that was talked about and said that the executive director should not be a part of that. We had that in conversation before, wanted to extend it to, it was talked about the last 2 years ago that applied to all board members. It doesn't apply from you're saying for a council member sitting on the board, because the board of the EDC is owned. I repeat, this is something that keeps getting lost. The EDC is owned wholly by the city. The directives and direction and interest of the city and the EDC should be 100% aligned. There are no conflicts of interest in there because it is wholly owned and directed under the guidance of city council. So there isn't this conflict of interest that arises when you have two organizations that are actually looking for each other's support and or possible financial incentives that could cross as far as tenants, et cetera. So not that there ever was, because it always, you can always recuse yourself, but has been expressed concern. And we haven't really had an issue until this past year. And that person that had the potential never acted as if never acted inappropriately. There's never been any case. Yes, sir.
If I may, sir, is the question regarding the potential to have council members assigned to the EDC board?
Well, that's agenda item 14, yes. So that, I mean, is there a conflict of interest in that?
So if,
So state law actually allows 3 members of the council to sit on type B EDC, which is what Helotes has,
Okay.
up to 3 members. Now, that's, whoever gets appointed or nominated and voted on, it's the discretion of you all, but state law does allow that.
Great. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember, comments?
Just one comment in the section that's been renumbered, 3.7, executive director, or I'm sorry, Article 2, section 3.7. The board of directors may employ an executive director who shall be a corporate official. I think we need to further clarify corporate official and city employee. Because I know there was, in the past, there had been some confusion, or it'd been a little unclear. Is that position a city employee or not?
So the executive director is an employee of the EDC. It wouldn't be an employee of the city.
Even though they get paid by this, or not get paid, but
They don't get paid
the
by the
city,
city.
no, but I mean, their healthcare and all those other things.
Yeah, the executive director would be the employee of the organization.
So he's a corporate official and an employee of the EDC.
Okay, but not at all the city, even though the benefits for that position run through the city.
The benefits,
portion of the services that are provided under the agreement between the EDC and the city.
Okay,
Because the city does, I think, offset some administrative services for the EDC, correct? And that's done through a contract between the city and the EDC.
That's accurate.
the EDC reimburses. So they just it gives access to,
okay,
for example, they have access to TMRS, but he still has to pay. The corporation still has to pay into it. So we allow them, it's kind of like membership. You can extend your membership USAA because you're armed service, and then your children by extension get to, but they still have to pay their own insurance. They just have access to it. It's a little bit, that may not be a great example, but they have access to it. They still have to pay the bill. They're not paid for by the city in any manner, shape, or form. So they would not be a city employee. So there are a corporate official that is an employee of the
just the EDC.
EDC.
Okay,
And the terminology used in here is consistent with state law in identifying that.
okay.
Okay. Well, we've all had a chance to discuss. So at this point, I guess we'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving item number 12 as written and detailed.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna say as detailed by your comment.
Yes.
Okay.
As read and detailed by the comments as I read them into the record. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. This time, I'm looking for motion to discuss and take action on item number 13 as written.
So I move we discuss and take action on agenda item number 13 as written.
Motion by Sanders, second by
Second.
Stones. Okay, this is an item that I brought up because of items that were discussed in item number 12 in the bylaws. There has to be some housekeeping that gets adjusted in the corresponding articles of incorporation. I shall detail them now into the record and offer an amendment to be read, approved as read into the record. One is in Article 9. Every time that you have a bylaws change and an articles of incorporation change, you file with the state. And for some reason, in the previous 3 iterations, including the one that was approved in 2022, it still left the registered agent as Rick Schrader as city administrator. So it would update that to somebody that is currently working with the city and place Selena Perez, city secretary, as a listed agent of record. Again, just a housekeeping issue. The second item is actually going to be limited to the first. In Article 10, Section A, the final paragraph on page 7, each director must be a registered voter. This really goes to the last sentence. A director shall not be a city official, city staff member, and/or city council member. That will be stricken, and replaced will be council members may occupy up to 2 board of director positions. Per discussion with council, those are the only 2 items, and the agenda item is written to be able to discuss the whole document, but those are the only 2 items that we're reading into the record at this point. So with that,
Question regarding that.
do
No,
you want to yield the floor? You have first choice, Sanders?
Well, if Councilmember Cato wants to go first, and
Sir, go ahead.
why did we choose 2 as opposed to the legal 3?
The reason being, in my opinion, as I brought this, was to be able to allow for the opportunity to have council members be in there. The idea wasn't really to staff it with council members. My opinion and the practice that I want to establish is that in case of, basically think about this, in case of emergency and we need qualified, eligible people to be able to serve, to fill out a board, we can put members in there. We could put 3. In fact, the original article of corporations indicated you could have up to 4, the way it was written. I don't know if it was written incorrectly or not. Apparently now you can have up to 3, but if you have 3, that's of 7, it almost becomes a de facto quorum, because 3 council members would be a quorum on our side. And if you had 3 council members on the EDC board, if the board voted them down or against them, they could come to council when the issue comes to council and win by de facto. And so therefore I wanted to avoid, even though that could be a possibility, I wanted to avoid that and say we just have a maximum of 2, so that there wouldn't be a guaranteed direction on the EDC board, because there would have been a quorum of council members on that board, and I wanted to avoid that.
It does prevent the issue of the quorum, because
Yes.
it is something that is concerning when you have that many people serving the same.
So by limiting to 2, we make sure that we don't get in a position where it's perceived or viewed or thought that we could just manhandle EDC. That's not really what we want to do. We want to serve as ability to be able to fill in gaps, such as what we have right now. We have a gap, but then when qualified candidates arise from the citizens, then we can put the citizens on the board and remove the council members. But it just gives us ability to be able to fill in and make sure that one of the most important boards of our city is fully staffed.
Okay, very reasonable.
Okay, with that, we'll turn it back to Councilmember Sanders for your comments.
I got no comments.
Okay, Solons? Matt?
I do have comments about this. So let's see. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right one. 13. It's this, it's 14. Here we go. So and this is a question for all of us up here, and I need to ask this question to myself. Having known that the EDC board was short a member, have I personally solicited citizens to fill that? I have. I've spoken to people and they're not interested, because it's a very important board. It requires a lot of time commitment. So I asked the same question to my council members. Have you solicited anybody to fill that spot?
So they can certainly answer, but I'll remind you that it was under the previous bylaws, it was not their purview. It was
not, and I'm guilty of that too, but
No, not
I'm
guilty.
asking.
It was not your position to solicit. It was their position to solicit.
there was a heavy sigh down there, sir. Please release.
This is not a game to me. So I have reached out to people. if whether that matters or not to the actual agenda item.
Yeah,
that we're being tasked with.
I will say the agenda items regarding amendments to the articles of incorporation, we're slightly drifting off from that topic.
This is agenda item 14, right?
13.
Oh, we're still on 13. My mistake. I have no issues with 13.
Okay.
Can't wait for 14.
Councilmember McGowan, you have any comments on item number 13?
No, I do not.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 13 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Oh,
As detailed.
excuse me. All in favor of approving item number 13 as detailed by my previous reading into the record of the two housekeeping items. Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Did you vote? No, one abstain. Okay. On number 14, I'm looking for motion in a second to discuss and take action on approving item number 14 as written. I suggest.
Yes, I did.
You do what? Mind, okay.
No, no. I'll do it.
Okay.
Yes.
You have to say, I move to discuss and take action. Okay. We have a motion by Cato, discuss and take action on item number 14 is written. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Sanders. Okay. All right. So we have currently, based upon the approval of item number 12, the ability for the mayor to nominate people to sit on the board. We constantly have a venue for citizens to be able to apply to sit on our board, any of our boards. We do take applications in across a number of boards, including the EDC, of which the last round of where EDC board members had reviewed, there was 6, I believe, applicants in there. And they had found a way to say that there was one person that they wanted, and then that person had pulled their application. We want to continue to seek qualified citizen candidates. It does take a lot of time and effort, and it is a heavy responsibility as you're dealing literally with millions of dollars of taxpayer money. I am mostly concerned with making sure that we have a full board. Again, I believe that our board members that are currently on our board are excellent people. They are qualified people, and they have shown tenacity to make difficult decisions. It's not a case that we have to have everybody agree on everything all the time. It's a matter of that we make sure that we have progress in the direction that the city is and the council has set up as parameters for moving forward with EDC. And that requires to make sure we have good decisions, that we have a full board. My inclination at this point is to nominate both Jen Sones and Sabrina McGowan for place 1 and place 3 respectively for the interim until we can find a citizen that is willing and qualified to stand up and be considered for that position, upon which I will be happy to bring those nominations to council to be able to replace our 2 council members that would be currently sitting on there again in the interim, is how I want to look at it. It is defined in the articles of corporation and the bylaws that when they're appointed there to fill the remainder of the term. And we can handle that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong from legal counsel, that if we have a qualified candidate, one of the council members could resign from the board, and then we could nominate a citizen and treat it simply as a vacancy at that point as well too.
Certainly that could happen.
Yeah. So again, the intention is not to manhandle the EDC board, but simply to provide additional qualified people to fill out the board. And again, until we can find qualified citizens to stand up and and then get nominated, of which I wholeheartedly look to accomplish. And again, my intention is to utilize input from Board of Directors from the EDC in that process as well, and make sure that we have well-qualified candidates in these positions. With that, I'll turn over to Councilmember Cato for any comments.
Right, no comments.
Okay, in which case I'll go to Councilmember Sanders.
So if I understand this, because when I first saw this, I was scratching my head. I'm like, can we legally do that? So now you answered my question that is by state law can be done. Voting, do they have to recuse themselves on EDC while they're sitting in those positions? And again, I hope they're temporary. I'm sure you're not looking forward to doing double duty. The voting part of it. So if they're a voting member on EDC, issues that will come up for council approval or disapproval, how does that work?
They have full voting rights unless it involves something that they're doing personally.
Yeah, I don't believe that would be a conflict of.
So they can vote, and they can do both.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because there lots of EDCs do have other cities that they have members on the council serve on the EDC as well. I think for conflict of interest questions, it's more of a case-by-case basis. So it's kind of hard to generally say that as a limited fact because everything is analyzed individually.
Right.
So it really depends on the circumstances that are before the council.
In the same manner, we have business owners on EDC board right now. And in the past, we've had an EDC board member, I believe, that applied for a grant. They had to recuse themselves for not voting on something that they would get as a grant.
Right.
And may even have to recuse themselves from even qualifying for applying for one because they're board members. So if it had direct, not indirect, such as we're going to do something and it improves foot traffic and they have a business in Helotes and therefore increased foot traffic rises all boats, that's indirect. But if something came up on case by case, it would, as would any board member, have to recuse themselves.
And I asked the question more as a question to protect both council members, right? Because I know both of these individuals have the most highest integrity. So I just wanted to know, how does that work, the mechanics, right? And if they have to recuse themselves when, or
So typically a conflict of interest arises when there's a interests that are not aligned. So typically, most of the time, EDCs and cities are aligned. And so there's a project for economic development. What can get, again, depends on circumstances, but what can get where you have to evaluate it is personal benefit to the individual. But again, typically those things are just looked at case by case basis. It's really hard to make a general statement, but typically there shouldn't be a conflict of interest between the EDC and the city council. Not to say that one cannot arise, but yeah, typically just if the interests are aligned, there shouldn't be a conflict of interest.
okay, thank you.
I have a question for the attorney. I have not experienced this before. So may I just make a comment on my nomination from the dais, or typically an applicant would come to the podium?
It's up to the mayor, the presiding officer.
If you want to make a comment, sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Can I do it from the?
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly.
So I know as discussed, there's been a significant amount of change with the EDC recently. And I do appreciate the leadership of the EDC board to make these hard decisions. But with these recent board vacancies and all these new challenges and transitions ahead, I wanted to step up and support. And I'm here to serve, guide, work hard to support the current leaders on the EDC. And I don't see this as long-term. Councilmember Sanders continues to hear me say I'm taking things off my list and now I'm adding something. But when I commit to something, I commit 110%. And so I'm looking August 2025, unless I'm going to get together at lunch with someone that I know in the city who I think would be great on the board this month. So, you know, things change and I'm flexible. So I just want to comment that to the mayor and the city and my colleagues on council. So thank you for your consideration.
I echo a lot of Councilmember Stone's comments as well, that this would be a temporary role for me as well. I have been attending EDC meetings since before I joined city council, just to educate myself. And I've learned a lot about the work that they do, and I'm looking forward to providing some support and bringing some of my skill sets to collaborate with the rest of the board members, and also helping to ensure that we all have a singular vision for moving Helotes forward.
Sure.
I appreciate both my council members stepping up. They're both very well qualified. And it's admirable that you would do that. But I will say that the last and very significant decision made by the EDC board was made by 2 members and its president. Having said that, I also appreciate, Mr. Mayor, that you've expressed that this is not a power move. But I will tell you that it is perceived by many to be a power move. I just, with the items number 12 and 14, just that's what it is. It is what it appears to be. It's a power move.
Sure.
That's what I appear. And further, do you think, I'll save that one for later. I'm done.
Well, I appreciate your comments. Since I've taken office, I think I've done more than any other elected official in reducing his power and decentralizing, including our experiment from 2 years ago and originally supporting the bylaw changes, what happened in 2022. But I still accept your assessment. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say that Mayor Whitehead, of all people, knows that I'm a very independent thinker. I'll just.
Oh, as do I, Ms. Jones. I do agree that you
I
are.
just want you to know that.
I am. I understand that. I do think you're well qualified for the position.
Okay, so with no further discussion, all in favor of approving, and we'll vote, correct me if we should have council, we should have Jen, they should be recuse themselves from this vote. We'll do one at a time, so there'll still be 4 votes.
Yeah, you probably, what I would do is do a motion for each candidate,
So
each nominee. And
let's,
then the nominee can recuse themselves from that vote.
Okay.
so would you like to amend your motion to break it up into 2 points, or can I just do it as 2 separate votes?
I would do it as 2 separate votes to be cleaner.
Okay, so we're gonna do 2 separate votes. All in favor, understanding Jen Sones will be recusing herself from this vote. All in favor of approving Jen Sones for place 1 on the EDC Board of Directors, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
1. Motion carries. Second vote,
3-1-1.
3-1. No, just 3-1. And 1.
3-1.
Yeah, 1, yes. And then with Sabrina McGowan recusing herself from this vote, all in favor of approving Sabrina McGowan to fill place 3 on the EDC Board of Directors, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries.
3-1.
At this point, we will bring Corey Vola. There you are, Corey, to make a presentation of the City of Helotes Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or MS4, for the fiscal year ending 2024. We all wait every year on bated breath for this report. You diligently sat here for 1/2 of a lifetime.
Yes, sir.
The floor is
Okay.
yours, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to present this presentation. To give a little context, the EPA through the Clean Water Act established parameters and regulations to ensure the quality of the water in the United States. Okay, and they passed those guidelines and those requirements down to the state. The state passes it to the municipalities and counties. Okay, and so that's what we're going to talk about, is how these how that affects us and detail how we implement what's been passed down from the EPA down to the state and now to us and falls on our lap. And so the presentation here is going to detail that. First off, we're going to define what an MS4 is. It's a conveyance of system of conveyances consisting of roads with drainage systems, municipal streets, catch basins, curbs, gutters, ditches, man-made channels, or storm drains, or anything that's designed or used for collecting or conveying stormwater that is not a combined sewer. In other words, anywhere within the city, the water can travel and enter a body of water. I'm sorry, can you stay on that page for a second, please? The overview is cities are required to present a stormwater management plan in order to get their permit. And the permit is presented at the time of a notice of intent to discharge to the TCEQ. And so that is the city telling the state that we intend on discharging water outside of our city, potentially into bodies of water. And in order to get that permit approved, we have to submit the stormwater management plan. The stormwater management plan consists of minimum control measures and the BMPs that we have to adhere to. You can go to the next slide, please. We're going to detail some of these BMPs, otherwise known as best management practices, that ensure that we meet those minimum control measures that were established through the Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. The 5 minimal control measures that our city uses is public education, outreach, and involvement, illicit discharge detection and elimination, construction site stormwater runoff control, post-construction storm water management, and pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. We're going to detail the best management practices that align with those minimal control measures. And that's what enables us to stay compliant. So for public education, outreach, and involvement, one of the best management practices that we have to do is education of elected officials and the public, which is essentially what I'm doing right now. If you see the gray action area, that's where we actually detail how we're going to do that. So we provide an overview of phase 2 permit requirements and annual updates of implementation progress. We conduct a minimum of 1 meeting per year in order to allow for public input, and we document those activities. For the illicit discharge detection and elimination, one of the best management practices that we utilize is storm sewer system map. That essentially means that we map all of our actual dedicated storm sewers throughout the city. Construction site inspection and enforcement. That is a VMP we use for construction site stormwater runoff control. And we inspect construction sites and we document those inspections. Move on. Engineering design review, that's the minimum control measure here, and we use post-construction stormwater management to help us adhere to that. Since I'm not an engineer, we use our engineering firm to go over the stormwater pollution prevention plans that developers come with, and then it's my job to make sure that they're staying in compliance. Pollution prevention and good housekeeping, disposal of collected storm sewer waste. Essentially what that means for me and Public Works is whenever we clean drainages and we remove items or illicit discharges, we have to dispose of those properly. And we do that through Frontier Waste nowadays. Proposed changes that are coming up. So we're gonna have a new stormwater management plan that we're gonna be presenting very soon. Beginning of 2025. Justin's worked diligently on that. He's done a very good job on getting some extra training and stuff like that to get him squared away on that. Some of the changes to get our permit, they're going to implement electronic reporting that's going to streamline the whole process. We're removing the need for operators to submit stormwater management programs or stormwater pollution prevention plans to TCQ for review and approval. We still have to submit those. We just have to wait for their approval, which took a lot of time. And then it removes the public notice requirement that they used to exist as well. So this is all, I believe, in an TCQ making an effort to make this process more streamlined, because in the past it wasn't very streamlined. They're backlogged pretty bad. Questions?
Corey, did you streamline this presentation?
I did a little bit actually, and man, did my best so I didn't lose any of you
Here's a
guys.
5-year strategic goal of getting it down to 3 minutes flat.
So is this only for like construction sites, but not like tech dot construction sites? Because we've had quite a bit of
TechStop's supposed to manage their own,
okay.
and they actually have
But
pretty
our-
strict guidelines.
Our water sewer systems go through that, right? The drainage systems and stuff. I was just wondering how we play with them when it comes to this.
So if I were to, I think I'm following your question correctly. If I were to be made aware of or witness an illicit discharge in something that doesn't belong to us, like, but within our bounds, I guess,
Sure.
I would contact the appropriate authority and seek the professional point of contact with that entity.
I'm understanding now. Thank you.
And this does get used. I know in Ironhorse Canyon, I've contacted you multiple times about development areas and where they actually doing the right kind of mitigation, right? On like these hills as they were starting to build their
Yes, sir.
foundations and stuff. So
And
it's real.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Craig. I didn't mean to.
That's fine.
And I know fairly recently, there were issues in Beverly Hills with the new Bryce Road build out.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
And your office was on it.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we continue to work
People
with
were
them.
understandably frustrated.
I think one point of clarity too is that there's a notice of intent, and that means that we are notifying TCQ that we intend on discharging waters. The whole premise here is to ensure that the water that we're discharging or a developer is discharging, they've used best management practices to keep that water as clean and unpolluted as possible. It's virtually impossible for it to be completely unpolluted, but they have to have parameters in place that they maintain, and I'm the one that inspects that and ensures that maintenance, so that the water is the least amount polluted as practical. Anything else?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Corey. Well done, Corey. Appreciate you. All right, at this time, we are going to adjourn into closed session in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.071 consultations with attorney, 551.074 personnel matters, and 551.087 deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. In addition to the matters below, any matters scheduled for open session that we have previously covered may be discussed in closed session as appropriately authorized by law. The time is now 8:38. We'll be adjourning. We'll be coming back. No decisions or vote will be taking place while we're gone. Shall return.
Jeep doesn't have a top.
Oh, no.
I got a Coke though. I'm not trying. Fuck.
I like.
Somebody this morning with their top off, but he was
Oh.
covered up.
So was I. I love.
Allergies hit at exactly 1:30 this morning. Cedar. All right, we back on? Okay, we are back in session at 9:09. No decisions were made. Put this back in here, 9:09. Okay, at this point, looking for a motion a second to discuss and take action on item number 17 is written.
I'll move that we discuss, and take action on item 17 as written, Mayor.
Motion by Sanders, second by
Second.
Sones. Okay. Essentially, what we are doing is ratifying direction was given to city administrator to complete operations and obtain try to obtain documentation from IRS that all bills are paid
And to satisfy
and are satisfied,
the obligations.
and that the obligations are satisfied, correct? Any additional conversation?
No, sir.
Anybody? No? No further discussion needed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving to item number 18, looking for motion and second to discuss and take action on matters discussed in closed session regarding the position of interim city administrator, authorizing the mayor and city attorney to negotiate and execute a contract per the terms discussed in closed session.
So moved.
By Merchant. Second by Cato. Any discussion?
No, sir.
Okay, all in favor of approving item number 18 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. And finally, motion and second to discuss and take action on item number 19 as written.
So moved.
By Merchant, second by Sanders. Okay, this will be to authorize the mayor and city attorney to negotiate and execute a contract per the terms discussed in closed session for the position of permanent city administrator. Any discussion?
Good luck, sir.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, with that, we will adjourn the meeting. The time is now 9:11 p.m. We are adjourned.